I hadn't eaten a real breakfast in 16 days. Not because I didn't want to. I just couldn't afford it. Between working nights at the scrapyard and trying to raise Mira on my own, most days I made do with instant noodles and whatever snacks I could scavenge from the discount bin at the gas station. But that morning, I had exactly $6.43 in my pocket and just enough hope to sit down at Mel's diner and order 2 eggs, toast, and the cheapest coffee they had. The storm had rolled in while I was still walking there, sheets of cold rain slashing the sidewalk, soaking me through before I even pushed open the door. Mel's was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like a blanket if you're alone too long. Only 2 other booths were filled, and the jukebox hummed low, an old Johnny Cash song drowning in static. I slid into the corner booth. Same one I always took when Mira was a baby and her mom was still around. Back when we were trying. Back when I thought love was enough to keep a family from falling apart. The waitress brought my plate with a soft smile. "You look like you need this more than I do." I didn't say anything. Just nodded and picked up my fork. First bite of eggs, hot and buttery, halfway to my mouth. The door slammed open. Everyone turned. She came in like she didn't know where she was, like the storm had picked her up and dropped her there by accident. Her hair was drenched, stuck to her cheeks, and her coat, if you could even call it that, was torn at the sleeve. Bare feet in dirty slippers. Skin pale like she hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. And her eyes, God, her eyes were wide with something that wasn't just fear. It was emptiness. The waitress gasped, rushed forward, but the woman held up one trembling hand. Her voice cracked. "Please. Help." Then she collapsed. Chairs screeched. Someone stood up. I didn't move. I just watched as the waitress helped her sit, brought a blanket from the back, and handed her a steaming cup of water. But the woman didn't drink it. She just sat there, soaked and shivering, clutching her hands in her lap like they were the only thing holding her together. I don't know what made me stand. I don't know what made me walk over and slide my plate across the table in front of her. I just did. She blinked at the food like it was a trap. Then her eyes lifted to mine, bloodshot, raw, pleading. "Eat," I said. "You're safe here." Still no name. No explanation. Just silence and the sound of rain slamming against the windows. I sat across from her. Didn't ask questions. Didn't tell her mine. We just sat, steam rising off the plate between us, and when she finally picked up the fork with shaking fingers, I watched her eat like it was the first time she'd tasted anything in days. Maybe it was. The waitress raised an eyebrow at me. I just nodded. "She's good," I said quietly. "I'll cover it." Even though it meant I had nothing left. No lunch. No dinner. No ride money. Just the soaked jeans on my legs and the flicker of something I couldn't explain. Compassion, maybe. Or maybe just the ache of knowing what it's like to have no one. When she was done, she didn't speak. She just set the fork down gently and stared out the rain-streaked window. I stayed a little longer, then stood and left. Never got her name. Never even saw her face clearly in the light. But something inside me knew I wouldn't forget her. Not for a long, long time. I couldn't sleep that night. The couch creaked beneath me while the storm kept tapping at the windows like a memory trying to get back in. I kept thinking about her, soaked to the bone, clutching that plate of food like it was a lifeline. I didn't even know her name, and yet, there she was, taking up more space in my mind than bills or work or even Mira's school project due next week. The next morning, I went back to Mel's. Not for food, I couldn't afford that anymore. But I just needed to know if she was okay. The place was mostly empty again. Same booth, same waitress. She gave me a curious look as I walked in, but before I could ask anything, I saw her. She was still there. hunched over the same table, wrapped in a dry blanket now, her wet clothes draped over the back of a chair. The waitress must have cleaned them overnight. Her head was bowed, damp curls covering her face, but when I stepped closer, she looked up. Her eyes were clearer now, but still tired. And in her lap, she held a camera. Old. Heavy. A kind of camera you don't see much anymore. She gripped it like it held her together. I brought you something, I said awkwardly. It was my old work jacket, frayed at the cuffs, worn thin at the elbows, but warm. I'd meant to keep it for the winter, but she looked like winter had already lived inside her long enough. She hesitated. Then took it slowly, like I was offering her something sacred. Thank you, she whispered. Her voice was soft, cautious. Like each word had to ask permission. What's your name? I asked gently. She looked down, then up again. A raven, she said. Not a name you hear every day. I didn't press for more. She noticed. You want to know what happened to me, she said flatly. I didn't answer. She nodded, almost to herself. But I'm not ready. Not yet. That's okay, I said. I'm not here to fix anything. Just wanted to make sure you weren't alone. She gave a ghost of a smile. Then her stomach growled. Loudly. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the last $3 I had. Quarters and crumpled bills. I placed them on the table between us. Lunch. Or tomorrow. Whatever you need. Her eyes widened. No, she said quickly. I can't. You're not taking it from me. You're giving me a reason to do something decent. Don't argue. She stared at me like no one had ever said that to her before. Then something inside her broke, not loudly, not visibly. But her shoulders sagged, and her hand covered the money like she was afraid the world would take it back. I'll pay you back, she murmured. You don't have to, I said. She held up the camera. Everything I own is in here. And some of it matters. Maybe not to anyone else, but to me. I nodded. I understand. She smiled again, this time a little brighter. The kind of smile that says thank you for not asking me to prove I deserve kindness. I stayed until she finished her coffee. Then I had to go. Mira had a half day, and I couldn't be late again. But before I left, I looked back once. She was sitting there, jacket wrapped around her, camera in her lap, staring at the rain like she was trying to decide whether to walk into it or away from it. I walked out before I could ask her to stay. That was the last time I saw a raven. I kept going back to Mel's every morning for a week after that. I didn't tell myself I was hoping to see her again, but I was. I told myself maybe she'd left town, maybe she'd found help, or maybe she'd simply needed a warm booth and a soft place to land before moving on. But the truth? I couldn't stop seeing the way she looked when she held that camera. Like it held all her broken pieces inside. The days slipped into their usual rhythm. I walked Mira to school, worked the scrapyard, made dinner from whatever we had. Life resumed. But something inside me didn't. Then one afternoon, about 3 weeks after that storm, a letter arrived. Thick envelope. No return address. Just my name, spelled out in handwriting that looked like it came from a typewriter. I opened it on the kitchen counter, thinking maybe it was another overdue notice. But inside was a formal letter, on high-quality paper, from a law firm downtown. They were requesting my presence to discuss a matter regarding Miss Raven Vin. My stomach dropped. I thought she'd died. That maybe she hadn't made it. That they needed me to confirm I was the last to see her alive. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking I should have done more. Found her help. Called someone. I kept picturing her soaked and small, gripping that camera like a life preserver. The next morning, I scraped together enough bus fare to get downtown. Wore my cleanest shirt and the only pair of jeans that didn't have holes in the knees. The law office was made of glass and marble. I felt like a ghost walking through it, mud on the carpet, anxiety in my chest. The receptionist asked my name, offered me bottled water. I sat on a sleek leather couch, heart thudding like a drum. Then they called me in. 2 lawyers, 1 man and 1 woman, sat across a shiny table. "Mr. Hale," the woman said kindly. "You're here regarding Miss Raven Vin. First, let us assure you, she's safe." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "She asked us to contact you," the man continued. "She's currently undergoing treatment at a private facility. But she wanted you to know the truth." They slid a photo across the table. It was her. But not the Raven I met. In the picture, she was laughing. Dressed in tailored clothes, hairstyled, glowing. She looked like a magazine cover. A completely different woman. "She's a documentary photographer," the woman explained. She'd just come back from an assignment overseas when a traumatic event occurred. She left everything. Vanished. She said she needed to be no one for a while. I blinked, stunned. "She told us," the man said, "that you were the first person who didn't treat her like a problem to be solved. You offered warmth without asking for explanation. That act meant more to her than you could possibly know." They handed me another envelope. Inside was a letter. In her handwriting. "Dear Rowan. I couldn't say it then. But I see you now. I see the man who gave when he had nothing, who looked at me and didn't flinch. You reminded me that humanity still exists. I don't know if our paths will cross again, but I hope this helps make your road a little softer. With all my gratitude. Era." Underneath the letter were legal documents. She had set up a grant in Mira's name. Covered housing. Tuition. A stipend for me to finish school if I wanted to. I sat there, too stunned to speak. "I can't accept this," I finally muttered. "I didn't do anything. I just gave her a plate of eggs." "You gave her dignity," the lawyer replied. "That's worth more than gold." I signed the papers. Hands shaking. I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for Mira. For the chance at something better. Weeks later, we moved into a small apartment. Clean walls. Running heat. Mira started school with new shoes and a backpack that wasn't falling apart. I started training as a mechanic. I stopped looking over my shoulder waiting for the next blow to come. But every time it rained, I'd find myself back at Mel's. Same booth. 2 eggs, toast, and coffee. I always left something extra. Not because I expected another stranger to stumble in. But because I finally understood. Sometimes, a single act of kindness changes everything.